How about a blindfolded cage match at Lockdown? We got America's Most Wanted, Chris Harris and James Storm. They're going to break up in their first match, which you would think would be a blood feud, is actually a blindfolded cage match. Now, why is it blindfolded? Well, because when they break up, Storm tries to blind Harris. And in fact, Harris comes out with an eye patch. So now, just like in WrestleMania 7, we got what I guess Florida used to call a Prince of Darkness match. What do you think of this as a rule? The idea is the guys can't see. As an adult, I wonder, why would we have ever thought that was going to be good?
Well, correct. So, full context, and this is something that James Storm, Chris Harris, America's Most Wanted were really pillars of TNA. The originals, certainly the biggest and best babyface tag team in the early days. And I don't know exactly where we were at in the relationship, or they were in the relationship, or the evolution of the tag team, but they wanted to split up and both have singles careers. And so we did the angle, and I think James cracked Chris over the eye, so he's losing his eyesight. Chris is going to wear an eye patch. But as this rolled along, kind of simultaneously, the Lockdown pay-per-view was coming up, which is a all steel cage format. So we needed them or wanted them in a match on Lockdown, but all matches were in a cage. So it's a step on, kind of what I said earlier. It's a step on a step. Had the cage not been up, I'm not saying that completely distracted from him, because I don't think at the very end of the day, the people wanted to see them break up. I don't know. As I said here today, no matter what we would have done, I don't think the people were ready to see the split. I just think they liked them as a tag team. And I kind of think we forced that because they wanted to do it. You know, in hindsight, we might have been better off keeping them together another 3 or 6 months, or told the story longer, or whatever it may be. But when we made the decision to do that, and then the Lockdown pay-per-view is coming up, and then the execution of that is not easy. And we were, I think that was St. Louis, and that crowd wanted to see what you probably just said. They wanted to see James and Chris. Big picture, they probably wanted to see them as a tag team, but now we got them facing each other. And if they were going to see that, they wanted to see a damn fight, as opposed to trying to tell a story. So in blindfold matches, you do a lot of Shakespeare, and is the guy over here, guy over here. And so too much storytelling. And man, the fans, they turned on the match in a big way. That was a tough bill for those guys, because they were wanting to do this red hot angle, and the whole angle kind of fell apart.
At some point in the match, Storm is going to grab the referee, Rudy Charles, and after Rudy convinces him he's not Harris, Charles spins Storm around to make sure he doesn't have an unfair advantage. And the fans start chanting, "We want wrestling," and then boring, and then fire Russo. And as if that wasn't bad enough, the hood accidentally comes off Storm's head at some point. This is just snake bit. They use a different word for it in the wrestling business once upon a time. There was a Shop of Horrors match too. Abyss and Black Rain are in it. Of course, I think the fantasy football league for Abyss looks like a Shop of Horrors. The Shop of Horrors match is basically a no DQ and no count out, but for some reason, Dustin has a key to a box off the ramp, and Dustin takes a choke slam to the floor, and Abyss tries to do it again on mousetraps. Dustin reverses it to pedigree Abyss on it, and it's not the finish. Abyss wins with the black hole slam and takes the key to open the box, and it's the debut of Relic. Is this like the less said about this, the better?
Relic. Killer spelled backwards. Yeah, it was, less said's better.
How would we, if we were to do like a Bizarro Jeff, how would you pronounce Jeff backwards? If Relic is killer backwards, what would Jeff be backwards?
You got the double F-E-J. Feg. I don't know. You give it to me, pal.
I don't know. Just, I'm Darnock backwards. I don't know if you can do, is it Fedge?
I think, but G it's not a G, it's a J.
Like Jordan.
F-E-J. You're hanging me out to dry here, pal.
It's fun. I like to do it.
I know you do.
Speaking of hardcore matches, this is going to become a staple. And I can't say this was one of the silliest, but boy, it was one of the craziest. The Monsters Ball match. Listen, there's a lot of these that didn't catch on. We would try them and they were one and done. But this is one of those that definitely caught on. There's been 56 of these Monsters Ball matches.
Crazy.
A lot of those were on house shows, of course. The premise is everyone in the match is sequestered alone in a locker room without light, food, or water for 24 hours. I'm sure that's all a straight shoot. And it's to include the extreme feelings of aggression in the competitors, or induce rather that an extreme aggression, and there's no DQ. That's pinfall or submission victory. The most well remembered is Monsters Ball 2005, I think. Bound for Glory would see Rhino beat Abyss, Sabu, and Jeff Hardy. Bound for Glory 05 was a big show for you guys, a landmark show, and we loaded up here. Rhino, Abyss, Sabu, Jeff Hardy. Is that the most memorable Monsters Ball to you?
Oh, I don't. To me, I think Monsters Ball. Obviously, I think Abyss, but also think of the video packages that we put together to build this match, because we would kind of know in our booking, if you will, that the 3-month arcs, kind of what we tried to do in TNA, wasn't rocket science on the one end, and the other end it was difficult to balance. But we kind of knew, okay, Monsters Ball is going to be 3 months out, so let's do things here and there, and knowing we're building that story, and then get sound bites, and then have the package, and probably 2 to 3 weeks out from the match, we just kind of let the package tell the stories. And it just, and we obviously, as can't believe there was that many of them. I know some of them were on house shows, but as time goes on and you have different spectacular high spots that you can put in there, it's kind of like WWE's Hell in the Cell. When you hear that, you just kind of think of iconic moments that have happened. Now, obviously, cage matches and guys that do moonsaults and all that, when you just kind of build the aura around it. But the Monsters Ball was, in essence, Abyss's version of a hardcore match. But man, he would go all the way with it, whether it was barbed wire and legit get ripped to shreds, or the thumbtacks, or obviously tables, ladders, and chairs. And Abyss would give it all, and we bag on him a lot. But when it came game time to put together any match, he's good. But when he put his mind to how am I going to structure this Monsters Ball match, and this is why I always love working with him, he thought about each individual guy's story and knowing that we're going to start here and we're going to get here. And by the end of his matches, those Monsters Ball matches, I believe, maybe not 100%, but damn close to it, everybody got over, not just the winner.
I know we've had a lot of fun with Abyss on this program, but I'm glad you said it, because I was going to as well. Like, when I look back on all of you, at least your time in TNA and Impact, it's hard for me to think of somebody who sacrificed more and put more on the line. I mean, Abyss, he's one of the pillars of the whole thing, is he not?
Without question. And, he was on the very first one in Huntsville, and then he went away to Puerto Rico with Dutch, and Dutch did too. And I'll say this, his name was Prince Justice, I think, at the first TNA pay-per-view. And when he came back as Abyss, as a seasoned performer who really understood the concept of telling stories, getting himself and others over, long-term storytelling, I just kind of think the rhythm that he helped create, not just himself, but X Division matches, tag matches, knockouts matches, just kind of the cadence of it all. I just had a conversation on my baseball side, and we just we talked about culture. Me and you have talked about it. Saban creates a culture.
Mm-hmm.
He wins every day. He doesn't just win on Saturdays. He creates that culture that we're going to have a winning mindset every day of the week. Abyss did that for sure from 2003 to 2009, in 10. And I'm not saying he didn't afterwards, but he's just a big part of creating a winning culture. And I think that speaks volume, because if there's and you're always going to have bad apples here and there, and people that are disgruntled. And I get that they're not booked enough, or want more money, or they're coming and going, or whatever. It just happens in business. But if you kind of have, as a part of that whole cog, guys that really put the nose to the grindstone day in and day out, and come to TV or come to work every day to win, man, oh man, it goes a long, long way. He was a big part of creating the culture at TNA.
The Bound for Glory shows were like your version of WrestleMania, and Monsters Ball became a staple at those, much like Money in the Bank was for WrestleMania matches for a while. And then they tried the Andre the Giant battle, battle royale memorial, and blah blah blah. So they try these different WrestleMania staples. Well, Bound for Glory had one. It was a Monsters Ball, and he had to be fired up in 2009 when Abyss's opponent that night was Mick Foley. I'm sure that night my man didn't need any Blue Chew.